Yeah, look, every day that they see me, they like, what's up, dude? I tell them not much, but we know it's not true. Got a to-do list that every day I gotta run through. I don't wanna small talk about it, let the work talk for me. I don't tell nobody about my secrets. Keep it to myself, cause nowadays they wanna leak it. I don't even share it with my family as of recent. Not cause I don't trust them, I would rather let them see it for themselves. I got insecurities, I don't wear them on my sleeve, so you know I gotta keep them on the shelf. Like awards I don't have yet. And every second that I wasted talking about it is a second I can have back. Look, I don't wanna tell them everything I'm gonna do. I would rather show them everything that I achieved. I don't wanna tell them that I got it with no proof. I would rather show them the receipts. I find it funny how they say
I found a picture of his teeth and stuff like that. There's a lot of interesting stuff about that. I've got some stuff here. To be honest with you, the only thing I could find about Hitler's death that would say he actually did die and didn't die were the teeth. Just one set of teeth, not all of his teeth, one set of teeth.
And that's the ones they found with the body, or what?
Yeah, but even that doesn't make sense because where the other, they had, they also had a skull that they thought was his, and it ended up being. Anyways, we need to get into that.
Yeah, that's where
I want to hear your take. I want to.
We're rolling already.
Yeah, well, we are. We're recording, so we're gonna. It's just gonna fade into this.
This is the vibe. Like,
this is kind of where we want to go. So, what do you think, Matthew, about Hitler's death? How do you see it? What kind of do you think kind of took place? I've spent like the most out of any subject I've spent reading and watching videos on Hitler's death the last 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Because to me it was like I felt like there was so much evidence and so much opportunity for him to have escaped and other things to happen, and I wanted to believe that he was dead so bad. But like, what's the way you interpret the story? You know, what do you think about it?
The way I interpret that story would be, I think we were kind of fed a local story to kind of shut down the war. War is over, you know. And in 1944, 1945, when it was in April, I think it was it 45? I can't remember if it was 44 or 45. But it was in April of that year. They just needed the war to be over. You know, it was like the Russians were coming in on Berlin. America was filling in. The Allies were all surrounding them. That needed to be a finalized story. And how else to finalize the story except to say the bad guy's dead? We went in there and we kicked tail. We killed him. Right? So the story is over with that. And then you can start rebuilding the German story from there, which is a really unique story in itself. You know how we took a lot of the technology and everything from there. So with Hitler at that point, I like I said, I still think it's just really they just needed the story to end, and he needed to be dead right there, regardless. And what they wanted to do was never find him. Yeah,
and keep in mind who was the was the Russian leader. I mean, famous for not being a good guy. Who was the guy that was in charge of making that decision and telling the rest of the Allied forces, because it was several days before we got there to Berlin and everything to be able to look at anything ourselves, and they had already cleaned up all of that stuff. It's freaking Stalin.
Yeah, burn the body.
Yeah, so I mean, you're talking about a guy who's not exactly trustworthy. Also, a guy who, when I can't remember the British leader, prime minister at the time, I can't remember his name, but he straight up asked Stalin, is Hitler dead? And Stalin straight up said, no, he's not. And this was a couple of days after the fact, after they had gotten in, after they had found his body, after all of this good stuff. And the more you dig into that thing, it's like, well, they cremated his body and there was nothing, but they cremated it with gas. And you've got to go however many thousands and thousands of degrees to cremate a body, beyond recognition. And they found this one little bit of a bit of a jawbone with his teeth in it. And that's the basis everybody uses. But they've never allowed for DNA, which is weird and strange. Never allowed DNA at all. Yeah. And they finally let some French scientists look at it. In 2018, they finally let them, but they didn't let them do DNA. Even then, they didn't let them do DNA. And so that was April 2018, English publication of the Memoirs of a Russian Entrepreneur revealed how she had been entrusted with a set of teeth in 1945 and tasked with the let's see right here. That wasn't a thing, but in 2018, I believe it was French that came in and they allowed them to look at the teeth for the first time since, and wouldn't let them do, DNA or anything that would give us 100% concrete. And even now, the Russians would look pretty doggone bad if it come to find out that their government hid that from the rest of the world. That one of the most evil men, certainly in the 20th turn of the century, that they let get away. 100,000 Russian soldiers all the way around Berlin, and they let him get away. Well, how do you think he got away, and what is that story to you? There's a lot of different ones, and there's a lot of different theories out there, but what do you... They're bombing the place, Hitler's in the bunker. From there, where does he go? What happens?
Well, no, that's where the conspiracy theories come in. It goes from conspiracy to conspiracy theory right there, because there's only theories about what happened and how he could have evaded being captured at that point. But I think now we've, there's some science behind all of it now. As a matter of fact, there's a TV show that they aired several years ago that they had put all these documents together that they had released from 2009.
Yeah.
It was on the History Channel. It was Tim Kennedy was a part of it. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a Delta Force operator who's manhunter is what he is now. But they put together a little team. I think it was called Hunting Hitler. It was a TV show that they had, and on that show they actually broke down like multiple ways that Hitler was able to leave, and they had evidence for that, which I can't really pull up to show you. That's why I'm referring to that show specifically.
Yeah. Because
on that they actually have evidence, and they have all of those documents they have amassed into one online it's one online place where you could it's like a Google search where you type in words and it'll pull up facts. It'll pull up the documents from it. With that in mind, they were able to recreate some areas where possibly in the routes that he was actually able to use, and one of them that I think is the most interesting was directly in Berlin. There is a park. It would basically be, I think it's called Tier Park. Tier Park is maybe I'm saying it right, maybe I'm saying it wrong.
It's okay, it's in German.
It's right in the center of Berlin.
It's not like we're going to say it right if we knew the exact word.
Right.
But.
So there's a park right in the center, and that park, they had shown footage of this, what it looks like regularly, and then they have some photos of when the Russians invaded. They showed some actual dead bodies on this road. Well, one of the things you can notice about this road is that the trees are all mowed down, and that the lamp posts are all cut down. There's no lamp posts or anything, and this is a straight runway. It is just it is a runway, 100% a runway. This, the one thing about the Nazis and the Germans and themselves, they were really brilliant engineers, and they overlaid architecture with functionality. And so even some of those roads, they were functioning as a last resort getaway in case they had to escape from downtown Berlin. All right, if it was being invaded, how do you get out to the airport? You may not. So what do you have? You have an airplane that can take off directly from the downtown road. And
well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you imagine, if you look at the interstates here, there's a reason why the tree line is so far off. There's a reason why there's those long stretches without anything in the median, why there's not big signs in the median, that kind of thing, unless signs have a height restriction.
That's exactly right.
So it's the same way. We do the same thing, but
Yep.
Well, but
we don't have to use that right now. Maybe.
So in everything that I've read and everything that and you can pull this up, there was a pilot, 31, 32 years old, a pilot who claims to have, he said the exact plane that they used, which was a short runway plane that could take off in that distance. They knew that 100%. So he was correct about that. He claimed that he flew Hitler, some of his high-ranking officials, and
I think his last name's Baumgartner.
Yeah, it is, and his new wife. They flew them out to some airport where he saw them get out and get into another thing, and so they ended up getting to some port somewhere. Went through several different places, but they got to a port and they got on a U-boat, which was a submarine. Now, what is interesting about that is, as crazy as that does sound, they got in a submarine and went to wherever. Months before that, the United States had come out and claimed that they blew up the last of the 3 submarines that they had. which is really, really funny because like 3 or 4 months after the war was over, one of those submarines came into port and surrendered. One of the 3 submarines that the United States claims they blew up and it didn't exist, they actually ended up surrendering, coming to ground and surrendering themselves. So that right there shows you that, first of all, we all know that we lie. Everybody lies. Sometimes lies in war, it gives you the upper hand to somebody else. You know, if you've got a room full of people and you're trying to get somebody to admit to doing something, you don't want to say, I know exactly who did it. You don't want to say, I have this evidence to prove somebody did it. You just want to try and see if you can't get them to admit it or figure that stuff out. So we lie. We lied about that, and the boats ended up existing. Now, what's also funny is they claimed the dude was crazy. We're talking about a decorated, you know, freaking high-ranking pilot who flew for Hitler himself, and you're gonna say he's insane? And so they threw out his testimony completely.
I wonder if Hitler had to change his looks as well too.
Not much he could do, just to take that little
mustache, shave his
stash
head
out.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's another thing is they talk about that city in Argentina. I can't remember the name of it, but it was literally built by Germans because it had the mountains with the snow on it and lakes and beautiful trees and forests, and it reminded Germans of Germany. Argentinian president was really pro-German, and so basically Germans would go over there for vacation all the time. Not just military, but just Germans in general. And they pretty much built a little town over there, which was a huge population, German. And that's where a lot of these people ended up going. And so I started watching a bunch of different things. In '94, ABC did a thing where they wanted to go down there to that city and see if they could find any Nazis that were still on the loose and wanted, you know, back in the early 90s, like 94 or something. And I'll be doggone if they did. They did. They found not only Nazis that they knew were there, they ended up finding a guy who was like the main SS soldier Gestapo guy in freaking Rome. And they found him, you know, this 70, 80-year-old man who was in charge of just massacring just hundreds of thousands of Jews and other people. And he was stationed in Rome. He fled and came here. And another thing is I was so jaded, and I think we all are so jaded. We should talk more about, in school and in different things, we should talk more about the fact that German soldiers were jumping ship and they were fleeing. Like, we had high-ranking German people who were paying off, you know, Swedish military personnel at border crossings in order to escape, and that it was successful. And we know this. That's not even a question. But when it comes down to, did Hitler try and do that? No, there's no question he didn't do that. He died. You know? And so that, to me, was the most fascinating thing. And the only bit of evidence that we have to say that Hitler actually died in that bunker on that day in 1945 was this piece of his jawbone that they will not allow us to do DNA. The first time we actually had external people look at it was in 2018. And the person that authenticated it was someone. It was a lady who worked as a dental assistant to Hitler's dentist, who was dead. So it wasn't even first-hand account necessarily. It was someone who worked in his office. So to me, I don't know, it's really, really, because I watched an entire thing, and basically you had the people, anybody who believed that Hitler was dead, they would say, because of the teeth, that proves it 100%. And then they would start insulting the people who believed he wasn't. And anybody who believed that Hitler wasn't dead said, well, look at this mountain of different things that are anomalies, you know, and that could potentially mean that, you know, he survived. And they never once said, well, that guy's an idiot for thinking that Hitler's dead. So I think that you can look at that too as just added evidence that, you know, it's not one of those, oh, well, you're just stupid. You believe, you know, and that's such a cop-out that a lot of people use.
Right.
But if Hitler left, did he go to Argentina? Where did he go?
Yeah, it was Spain or Argentina, one of the two,
Yeah.
or both
Yeah.
probably. That's what it seems like. That
Yeah.
maybe Spain was the first place he was able to get to, and he had to hang out there for a while. And then from Spain, he somehow did make his way to Argentina. And then from there, I think it's Paraguay. I can't remember exactly what those little towns are, which little crossovers there are from Argentina. But he was mixing in and out of like 3 different countries right there with Argentina.
Well, a lot of people think that that Hitler brought with him Nazi scientists, atomic bomb and material and everything else to Argentina as a peace offering, to say, here, we're bringing all this good stuff, let us, hide us, make sure nobody finds us, all that good stuff. And for years, they tried to extradite people, Nazi soldiers and everything that were in Argentina. And for years and years and years, they wouldn't extradite them. They wouldn't allow them to come in again.
Right.
So it was a safe haven for Germans. It's insane. And to think, and that's just one thing. And I mean, our government's known for all kinds of stuff, all kinds of lies. Russia's certainly not someone that you can trust. Stalin said that he wasn't dead and then came out and said, well, yeah, he is dead, and here's the proof. And Allied forces couldn't get there until like 5 or 6, it was several days after the war was over, after we got there.
Right.
We know for a fact that people did escape. We know that generals, top people, because here's another thing, and saying that reminded me of it. So they expected a certain amount of top generals and aides to be there at the bunker with Hitler. They were there. They should have been there, and they weren't. And there were no bodies, and they don't know where they went. And that right there, they got out.
That's what it should tell you right there. If they're not, their bodies aren't there, and Hitler took his own life, then that means he wasn't stuck. They weren't stuck. Somebody got out of there.
Well, here's the initial reports from the doctors. When the Russians got in there, they got some field medics in there to confirm Hitler's body. Their first initial assessment was, this is a bad body double. This is not Hitler. That's what they said. They recanted, changed their mind, changed their tunes, all that good stuff. That didn't make any sense to me. And if they found bodies, why don't we just have a piece of a jaw? And then we already know that the skull, when we did look at it in 2018, it was a woman's skull. It may have been a man's teeth, it may have been Hitler's teeth, but the skull part that they thought was Hitler's was a woman,
Right.
in her like mid-40s or something like that. So that didn't make any sense either. So it's constant stuff that doesn't make any sense that should make sense. Things that we should be getting right. Things that it shouldn't be lost in transmission. And what is that? Transits. Yeah.
Oh, I was just looking up that which one we're
Hans.
talking about, the pilot.
Yeah. Hans Bohr was his name. Yeah.
He was
Dang, he died in 1993. That was my birthday.
birth year.
Hmm?
Your birth year?
Birth year. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's just crazy to me, and it bothers me. And when you start looking into something like this, something that is so well known, something that we have so many documentaries on, and some things we never talk about in any of these documentaries. And I watched like 3 hour-and-a-half long documentaries driving and working. They never spoke about German soldiers and generals and top aides escaping, which they did, and they did throughout the war. It wasn't just at the end. When they started thinking, oh yeah, this is going to go bad, they tucked tail and they ran and disappeared. Like, what happened to them? They went somewhere, they assimilated in some other society. You've got killers in different places. So we know that. They never talk about it. We know that there were supposed to be lots of aides and top generals and everything else in there with Hitler in that bunker, and there wasn't. And we know that the story that the SS soldiers initially told Russia when they got in there about, we rolled them up in a rug and you set them out here and we burned them, was not true, because they ended up finding his teeth somewhere else from where the bodies were burned. And also, when the doctors came in, they said at best it was a bad double, Hitler double. So you got all these different things on top of Stalin saying 3 days, 4 days later, whatever it was, to the freaking British Prime Minister, he is not dead. And then going on for several saying he's not dead. And then you have FBI documents that have been released, as well as MI6 documents, and I'm pretty sure Israeli documents as well, that said for years and years and years after, they're still looking for Hitler. They're still putting money out there, actively looking in all kinds of different places for Hitler. That's just weird. I wish somebody would come out and talk about it. I wish somebody would. It's not. I mean, all we can have are theories as to why they do this stuff, because they won't come out and openly talk about it.
Well, I think it's such a big deal because if it's exposed, then what else are we going to be not telling the truth about? You know, all the other theories out there that could all be cover-ups as well, or even fake deaths that we've heard about through up till now.
But is it, I mean, that's the thing though, is it helping anything for all this stuff? Because these FBI documents are getting, most of that stuff is timed. So after so long, it automatically is released.
Open.
Open. Except redacted where some, names and different sources and techniques and stuff may be, stuff like that.
People are going to believe anything the bigwigs say up here. So it doesn't matter what me and you say. If we saw it ourselves, if the big people put it on the news and spread it out like they've done everything else in history, the masses are going to believe.
Well, what is your opinion on, if you're thinking about that in a big way, why did Donald Trump, I'm putting you on the spot here, why did Donald Trump kick the bucket down the road when it came up for him to declassify all in 2017 or 18? He was supposed to fully declassify all of the JFK files. And he kicked it down the road. You know how long he kicked it down the road? To his predecessor.
So he didn't want to address it at all?
No, he did not want it. Now, my best guess would be that somebody grabbed him and they're like, you don't need to. But everybody from that time period is dead.
And make him look a little crazy too if he said it was true and that maybe he didn't die either.
I've heard that he didn't die. I think he did die. We aren't even supposed to talk about JFK. It made me think about, other things that people who we quote unquote trust. You would look at Donald Trump as an outsider. You would look at him as a disruptor. You would look at him as, JFK, let's that and the MLK stuff and then this stuff and that stuff, declassify it all. Who cares? Which I think we need to do personally. I think everything should be. I mean, there are secrets that need to stay secret, but when you're talking about public and huge things, especially things that they never concluded 100%. These things, I think they need to be declassified. But JFK's, who was his? We've already been here before. We've talked about this. Who was JFK's vice president?
Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Okay.
LBJ.
So here's the thing: is it was only a few weeks prior to his assassination that they wanted to invade. They wanted boots on the ground in Nam, and he came out on camera and said, "Absolutely, under no circumstances will we put U.S. troops on the ground in Vietnam." He said that. He dies, and within a few weeks, LBJ has boots on the ground.
Right. And
we get into an awful war, basically trying to say that North and South Vietnam, the I can't remember which one we ended up supporting. I don't know if it was the North or the South or East or West, but either way, one we said was the good guys and one we said was the bad guys. And we decided we were going to go over there and fight against the others. We got our tail kicked, our embassy stormed, the famous, almost like Afghanistan, where we were taking people out by helicopters, and it was awful, So, I mean, it's pretty clear that they wanted him dead so that we could go into Vietnam. And that seems pretty obvious. Whoever killed him, whether, it was the right guy, they caught the right guy or not, whoever killed him, it seems as though, we did it so that we could go into Vietnam.
So the question would be, why would we want to go to Vietnam?
Money.
Yes. I have heard that they could have ended that war very quickly.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And they wanted hand fighting, all that crap, instead of just big missiles or air brigade or whatever to end it.
Yeah.
So that the people controlling us got the money, whether if it's the people who own and make weapons to those factories, so they could get theirs, all the lobbying that gets done. So we stay there.
Not Blackrock. What are some of the big military contractors, companies? I know you've got Lockheed Martin.
Yep.
What are those called?
Raytheon.
Raytheon. What would they be called? Military contractors or
mercenaries?
Well, but they just make the gun. Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
It would be military contractors.
Okay, so how many military contracting companies do we have in America right now? Today, Jamie. I'm gonna call you what Joe Rogan's guy is.
Jamie?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. I don't know, I'm using your Braves, so let's see.
You probably want to go with Google for this.
Yeah, well.
We can believe Google.
Yeah.
we can believe Google. You know,
that's no conspiracy.
That's BlackRock owns it. We can believe it.
So here's the thing: is where I'm going. Where I'm going with this is that the defense contractors. That's what they are.
Yeah, the top 5 says Lockheed Martin, RTX, which is Raytheon.
We used to have like 40 something. We used to have a lot.
Well, you got to look at who owns those too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you really think about it, what's it? It's Vanguard,
State Street,
mm-hmm. Blackrock, which they all own each other.
Yeah.
So they're really all the same thing. Which we're not even supposed to go into this yet.
But, I mean, it's all.
I mean, I guess it is.
It's all relative.
But
my point is that all the companies have bought each other out nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we went from having like 40 something back in whatever time 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago to now we have like a list of 8, 10 major companies. They've bought everybody out. So now it's even more powerful. Whereas you did have this, military industrial complex where it was a pretty big outfit with multiple members that would have to get on the same page with something. Much harder to believe in a conspiracy like that where they bought out something to go to war and a bunch of people died. Much easier to think nowadays when you have, you had 20 companies that would be worth what, Lockheed Martin is worth back then. And now Lockheed Martin owns those 20, so now what are they worth? And what do they do? So
publicly owns those.
Yeah. So when we go to war now versus when we go to war back then, you're talking about you're only calling a couple companies. That's like the difference between going to Dollar General to get groceries and Walmart. It's like you're gonna walk into a mom and pop grocery store, grab what you need, and you're gonna be like, oh man, only one kind of 9mm. I really wanted the hollow point or whatever. I mean, but you're gonna go to Walmart, and you're gonna have just bunches and bunches, tanks and planes and all from one company. And then go to their sister company over there, and they've got all this other stuff too. So it's not that hard for me to believe. It's not that big of a stretch for me to think, they could arrange to kill someone. And I think they did. I think the FBI, CIA, I think that the powers that be did kill RFK. Or JFK.
Yeah.
RFK.
And RFK. I think that was Robert was his brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go into Blackrock since we're right here anyways.
Well, I just want to say Hitler was the Epstein of his time. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, that's the same thing, But I did want to ask, do you think that Hitler was a puppet, like NWO puppet? Like, do you think that was... I mean, that's a theory that rolls around, that he was...
positioned by the elite of Germany.
Yeah, which, I mean...
Look, if you go look at who those elites were, and I can't come up with their names, I don't remember them exactly either. But you go back and look at the elite, the royalty from that area of German people there. There's a lineage of people that you could probably tie to who they were to get people in position. I mean, those German elites are still some of the same elite that are elite right this moment. Those are founding.
Well, it's the same thing as us.
Fathers of elitism. So I would say, he was definitely a puppet. But at one point, that puppet became bigger than the people behind him, and so he really
might have been when he started drugs.
I mean, he was definitely on amphetamine.
When he started You know.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely on some stuff.
The methamphetamines kicked in is when he forgot who the puppet master was.
It makes me wonder if he was a puppet, like say Joe Biden is.
But you think he's Obama's puppet, or do you think he's
who's the puppet master?
Former vice president.
We're going to talk about them again in a little bit.
Respect the office.
Yes. I mean, they've got a few names, but
so I'm wondering if other countries have a puppet master as well for what we see as the head of that country, but it's really just the puppet.
Yeah,
I think that's the majority. Devin sent me an interesting video today talking about, how we hear democracy a lot.
Yeah, it's been pushed for the past 6 years.
Push
real
democracy,
hard.
democracy. We're not a democracy.
Right.
Never have been.
We're a constitutional republic. Now, I've always grown up knowing that, and I don't really pay much attention, but you hear them, especially when they talk about Ukraine and some of these other places, they're like, we want to go over there and we want to push democracy. And it's just like, and I heard Tucker Carlson the other day, he was talking, I think when he went and he did an interview with Lex, and he's like, I don't think that every country should be like the United States. Culturally, I mean, we all just think everybody's just, sipping on coffee in the morning and afternoon and all the, like, some countries drink tea. Some countries don't drink tea or coffee. You go to some of the Middle Eastern countries and what?
Oh, you were talking about tea and coffee. I was going to say that I believe it's in France that you don't drink, maybe Italy, but you don't drink tea with cream or coffee with cream after like noon. Like you do that, and then they're like upset at you.
I'm just saying.
Just a little squirrel.
Do you think a country that gets upset with you about using cream and sugar in your tea or coffee after a certain time is going to be able to build some kind of republic? There's not a constitutional republic out there. You go to Mexico or you go to Canada, you're not free. I mean, the Prime Minister said last year before, Trudeau in Canada, he's like, you don't have a right to a firearm.
That's
here.
right.
He said that.
He did say that
on freaking camera. Like, you don't have a right to that in Canada. And they also, what they'll find is the more that these people stand up and talk and go against him and other people, they'll find they don't have a right to free speech either.
That's right.
They don't have a right to anything. And as much crap as we give for our healthcare system, which, I think this last statistic was 60% of, it's a high number. I'm just going to say 60%. 60% of bankruptcies in America are due to unforeseen medical expenses because of how expensive our stuff is. But in the same token, you go over to the UK, and if you have a disease that's not worth their time fixing, they'll just let you die. Yeah, they'll unplug you. You've heard the stories of a couple years ago. We had several little girls, little boys, little kids, 4, 5, 6 years old that had these diseases. All they needed was a simple surgery. I mean, it wasn't simple, but you had American doctors saying, "I will pay to fly you over here. I will perform the procedure for free," and the government wouldn't let them. They wouldn't even let them travel from the hospital over there. They wouldn't let them because they get to decide. And that was in freaking London, I believe. I mean, you're talking about very modern, westernized type, cultures and civilizations, and it's just because they don't have that freedom. And I don't even know how we got to talking about all this stuff. Where are we going with all this?
We'll probably into the next. It's 66.5.
Boom. Pretty dang close.
Yeah.
Not freaking bad for off the cuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to under.
Of I'm dying. Of bankruptcies caused by medical debt, or about 530,000 cases a year.
That's how many people they let die?
No.
That's bankruptcies caused by medical expenses
in America.
In America. 66.5?
Yes.
Percent.
All
very close to 66.6, by the way.
Yeah.
It is very close to 66.6.
That's a whole nother episode right there. That's a whole nother episode.
That is a whole nother episode. Yeah. We could probably just transition right into Flat Earth.
And
we'll start talking about AI to go with. Because that is the sign.
So
right there.
That's next time we do the. See, and I wanted to call this the tinfoil hat hour, but Jared said that might be offensive. I was going to bring hats that were covered in tinfoil.
We're talking about
for
the whole phone call thing, where they did the test,
which
was unconstitutional, in my opinion. They did the national test on your cell phone.
Oh,
they did this past year.
Oh, was
That's-
Which one?
Which one did they do this time?
No, the
Oh,
one
where they did everybody.
You mean this
everybody's-
one this last time?
everybody's
I remember
beat.
that.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that. But
That's-
what about this last time when? And this is way off subject. But when our cell phone stopped working, what was it, last week, week before?
Yeah.
And then there were, in certain areas, there were sirens going off. There were reports and tests of the national emergency lines and stuff,
there's
all
so
at the same
much.
time.
How about here's a crazy one. I'd like to get I want to get everybody's opinion real quick on a percentage of how true is what I'm about to say and how is untrue. Right? How much you believe and how much you don't. Say 30, 70, 70, 30, whatever, in favor, whatever. In Hawaii, when we had those fires.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this
Come
up.
on. Hold on.
We all know what you're going to
Hold
say.
on. In Hawaii, when they had those fires, okay, so is it
that dude?
hold on,
do
is
thing,
it
or-
weird that it seemed like everything that was colored blue
Yes.
didn't burn, and the fact that somebody's like, oh, they got this military grade laser thing that shoots like these microwave
Direct
things,
energy weapon.
and it doesn't affect blue. That's why you had blue cars that were seemingly untouched, and every car around
What
them
about
was
the president?
burned to a crisp. What president?
Biden, what he said. I mean, and I'll try to find it and
He
post
did.
it on here.
He did. I saw
He
it recently.
said that
Because their roofs.
because their roof was the correct color, or because
Yes.
that was the correct color.
And
he
Oprah's-
said that. Yeah, her
Oprah's
yes.
house had a blue roof.
So,
Just painted.
Just painted.
Just painted.
Weeks
what,
before.
weeks before?
so it sounds like Kevin and John are 100%. What about you? What do you think about that?
No, I don't know much about it, to be honest with you.
That's well, I mean, you remember the incident, right?
I definitely remember the incident.
Well, it happened in California.
Do you know what the do is?
So,
The do weapon, or the direct energy weapon. I don't know, how do you say that?
so
the do?
that direct energy weapon. Now, I'm not exactly familiar with that either. I do know they have some things out there like that.
Sure.
Like there's a grid that you can see over in the sky sometimes. So I know energy, like they have all kind of stuff that's happening up in the Pacific there.
Sure.
Now I don't know much about it. As far as what happened in Hawaii with the fire, I mean, I did see like some footage where they actually had the power lines on the ground, and they said that's what caused it. So I really don't know much other than that.
So
I'm very curious about the blue roof, though. I didn't hear that.
Look up some
there was
stuff.
also
Or John, one of y'all. It doesn't matter.
There was also.
No, I'm looking
oh,
up
you're looking
stuff.
up some stuff.
I'm looking up other stuff.
So there was also this is all right. We're on a different subject now, which is fine. But there was also an incident where they couldn't drink their water for like a month or something like that, like 3 weeks, something like that, because the reserve fuel, everything up on top of the mountain, if something had happened, it got into the drinking water. The whole area was covered in that, right? And so in Hawaii, they are at that place. They weren't able to drink their water for I think a few weeks. Prior to that, you could, I mean, you know, after water evaporated a little bit, you could catch it on fire.
Holy
But the police were blocking them in. They had the area blocked. All
that I
the
did
kids
see
that went
footage of
missing, where are they at still? There was carrier. What do you call those choppers that? A carrier chopper? I don't know what it is. I could probably look it up, but that carry the cargo containers. There was one of those that was there carrying a container. Like there's video of that. There's people that have said they've seen it. So there's that situation. There's the kids going missing. There's the fact that blue roofs, blue umbrellas. You know, I mean,
And the lasers are blue too, right?
I think I don't know if it's blue or green or like a hue of both, or something like that. But I mean, you're not supposed to be able to see it, I guess, but you can see it. I don't really know. I've looked at some of it, and then there was something that happened not too long ago. I don't even remember what it was. A couple weeks ago, that they thought was the same thing. Like, I mean, you can clearly see the beam, which that could be anything. That could be
regardless
whatever,
of the beam or whatever, there are a few things that are incredibly sus, which one being these cars melted. They were incinerated. There were things that melted, these metals that melted on these cars that will not melt in any kind of a car fire. there were cars catching on fire that were, from me to you from the ocean on a road.
Yeah.
And between them and the forest was, blocks and blocks and blocks of buildings. We're talking concrete. We're not talking about like my house here made of sticks and stuff. We're talking
How did
about
it get that
downtown
hot right there?
Doesn't make any sense at all. And so what's really weird is you would have like these cars in a row, and you could look. These pictures are incredible. There are like all these cars in a row, and they're just incinerated. And there's this blue car. I mean, sure, it's hot, it's burned, but it's just chilling. It's just there. It's hot and burned from everything that burned around it. And then there are and some of the blue houses that didn't burn ended up being very wealthy celebrity type houses and stuff like that. It was just extremely, extremely weird. So regardless of if it was some kind of a weapon or whatnot, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that our government either caused it or knew who caused it and let it happen. The local government refused to sound the siren. They refused to. They said, well, we thought it would cause people a panic. Also, when they tried to leave the island, they were turned away. They said, no, there's no need to leave the island. You're good. Go back home. And these people died. And this is fact. This is not conspiracy. This is fact. The fact that, do we know the government was behind it? That it's up in the air. Do we know that that it was some kind of a weapon? That's up in the air. But the fact that it was done purposefully, the fact that they did not sound the alarm, because he thought, oh, people are going to think it's that's what he thought. He thought, oh, they're going to think it's a tsunami, so they're going to run back home and they'll die.
Gotcha.
But that's not all that it's used for. And the fact that, what was it? Oh, it was incredible. I don't know what the timeline was, but an hour before or whatever, or during, all cell phone towers went out completely.
Yep.
And the kids were sent home from school. But the parents
They never
didn't know
showed up
that.
at home.
The parents didn't know that.
2,000 something kids. But there's also, when you actually, so you think about it, you were talking about Vietnam, we were talking about all that, we were talking about the reasons behind it. What about the big corporations that we've talked about already, and their shell corporations that have been buying up all kind of land there prior to that, and then they gave them $700 to the families.
That's the saddest thing.
$700 freaking dollars to rebuild their homes, and they're not going to rebuild. They're going to go to some apartment. They're going to come to the mainland. They're going to go to somewhere like that, and guess who gets the land? Because they want the land. Because see, what's trying to happen, what they're trying to make happen, is the opposite of what they're trying to make happen everywhere else, which they're trying to raise home values to suppress everyone, because they're trying to create a big reset where they are in power of everything and they own everything.
Yeah.
They're trying to create their haven in Maui. They've got the big high rises and everything they want to put up there.
This was a very old village there, very old town. Very small, old buildings in comparison to the bigger islands and stuff like that. I mean, this is like...
Yeah, Maui's more family-oriented compared to
Yeah, so here's one example there of a blue car being relatively untouched while the others aren't. Now, what's around that that's going to... Look at those buildings, man. They're gone.
They're toast.
How did it touch... How did it do that to all these cars? Now, this white truck is... it's a work truck. But my point is... And there's all kinds of videos like that.
Like this. Look. I mean, look.
Look at that.
The umbrellas.
Look at that.
I mean...
Jeez.
See?
Everything else is
that?
like... But the umbrellas are untouched.
Freaking blue
and
houses.
I don't know, this might be what he just showed y'all, but
blue
that's
car,
the one
I just showed.
And this truck, obviously, that's the one they showed you. So, but I mean, it's just ridiculous.
But no one's going to come out and believe exactly what is obvious. Right?
Well, it's very, very hard. I've thought a long time about it. My biggest thing is, why aren't people up in arms? Like the Epstein thing. Why is Epstein allowed to do all that he did? They catch him, they put him in jail. We know that his brother went to collect his... There's a video, you can watch it. His brother went to the jail to collect his things and to get a report. He has a camera. And the dude's like, I can't find it.
Well, if you get in the way of the agenda, they're going to kill you. Look at JFK.
Well, but I'm talking about your normal people because, you know, the thing about America, and I know it's way more difficult nowadays, but I always forget how this is phrased, but the government rules by the power that we give them. What is it? What's the phrase? There's a phrase that's in our Constitution, basically, but they only rule by our authority and what we allow them. You know, basically in a constitutional republic. So, and when it comes to what can we do about it, what can the average person do about it, the best thing, if you're a non-interventionalist and you don't want to get all conspiracy or crazy, is read about it. Just know. Look into it a little bit and just know what's going on and what your government's doing and what they're capable of doing and what they've done. And that way, if it ever does come to a head where we have to do something with our government, like we have to overthrow them or we have to do something like that, then you're not on the fence. You know. You're like, yeah, I see. Yeah, so we need to do something. But if you're going to be this person that's just pussyfooting around and you're just going to be like, you know, haha, you know, the earth's flat, or, you know, haha, Blackrock, you know, they're buying up houses and, you know, creating permanent rental markets and stuff, like, haha. Like,
well, and you can't even really prove, I mean, you can prove that Blackrock is buying up houses, but you have to do the research and you have to actually look and see that the company that came in that paid cash for the house that you were looking at, that, you know, and there's a lot of that, there's a cash buyer that came in and they bought the house.
They're coming in
and they're shell corporation.
They're coming in and they're like, so John, you know, you sell your house, you know, maybe it's worth $215,000 or whatever, and you have it on the market for $229. You're going to see what you can get, $239. Well, then essentially what BlackRock's done in a bunch of places in California and stuff like that, I'm not sure how widespread it is, but essentially what they did is they came in and said, John, you know what, $350,000, dude, cash, 2 weeks to close. And you're like, holy cow, I'm rich. You're not going to not take it. Why would you not take it?
Exactly.
But what they do is they turn around, they write that off of the books as a loss, and then they rent the freaking house. And what did they do? They made the neighbor down the road's house go up in value. So then they're like, holy cow, they sold that house for $300. I'm going to sell mine for just under that, and then I'm going to sell mine, and then nobody can afford to live there anymore.
Exactly.
And so what BlackRock will do is say, you know what, I'll buy yours too. I'll buy yours too. I'll buy yours too. And before you know it, they've created a market. Imagine how many neighborhoods you would have to do. And it's not about doing it in an entire city. That's the thing. If you go down in Andalusia and you just go down like Stewart Street, you got Stewart Street, Barton, that's right in front of Andalusia Ford. Stewart Street, Barton, Nixon, Pugh Street, all these, they're very low income houses, they're very small houses. Those houses, you know, at best shape of any of them, you know, may be worth, I don't know, $60,000. Most of them probably worth in the mid-30s.
Yeah.
But if you walked in there and you're like, I'm going to buy 5 of them for $140,000 cash, they have $10 trillion in assets that they manage. This is not a small freaking company. You just write that off as a loss. Oh, and we subsidize BlackRock with our tax dollars. Why? I don't know. But we subsidize them. So we give them money of our tax dollars too to go in and do that. And now all of a sudden, if you have a rental property on Barton or anything like that, you're like, holy freaking cow, man, those houses were crap. Mine's better than that. And they sold for $100,000 more than I thought I could get for this thing. What are you going to do? You're going to put them on the market and sell it. All they have to do is buy a few of those before people can't afford to live there or buy houses anymore. Yep. They changed that neighborhood and that part of, because when you're looking at comps for a house, you try and stay within 2 to 3 miles of that house for comps.
So where do these people go? Well, if it's the Hawaii people or the people on Barton Street, where do these people go?
Well, but I mean, and that's the thing. Like, where all the people that were displaced in Hawaii, where are they? Why don't we know? Why don't we talk about it? Where did they go?
Why does stuff happen so quickly now? And we know the answer to this, but why does stuff happen so quickly now that it's one thing after another happening that takes us off of the real issues? And it's because they control
kind of
the
like
narrative.
This story has taken us off of the issues
Well,
that
I mean,
we were supposed to be talking about.
I mean, we came from all kind of other things, but we keep coming back to Blackrock.
But that's what I keep,
You know?
and that's what I keep thinking to myself is, why doesn't the normal population care about these things? Why are you called crazy?
Maybe they don't know how to care about it.
Why are you called crazy if you think that Hitler might have escaped when you already know dozens of generals and top aides and SS soldiers did escape successfully and were never caught.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Why is it so hard to believe that Hitler would or wouldn't? Especially when it was such a weird way that they kind of figured out that, okay, he's dead. It's weird.
Yeah, I think there's layers to that. I think, everybody's like entertainment. We have this entertainment thing in America where we're always supposed to be entertained. Not to mention with entertainment, there's the way you work. Everybody has to go to work here, so you don't really have a lot of time where you're going to think about stuff that's outside of what you have to be doing all the time. I think,
Well, there's TikTok and everything else.
That's where I was going. That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
You have so many ways to stay sedated in a sense that you're not going to stay on this subject for very long. It's not going to stay at the top of your list to do because for one, you're going to be there's 77 things that's going to happen tomorrow that's going to pull you in a different direction. Yeah. And most of the time, it's the stuff that we've chosen to have that influences that way. It's not stuff that we have to have. It's the stuff that just influences us.
But why would we have chosen it?
That's just it. We did choose it, and it's like, why did we choose it? Partially because it's been advertised.
Oh yeah,
to us,
not just advertised. Ever since the mid '90s, it's been pushed that you got to. Everybody wanted to keep up with the Joneses, but the thing is back then when before I was born, it was easy to do. You just worked. You went to work. You came home, you spent time with your family because you had time to spend with your family because you worked a decent job that paid what? You could pay for a house in 2 years with your salary. But now, we are oppressed, we are suppressed, and we are indoctrinated. And I'd say we, obviously, as a whole, we're literally just filled with junk. I have 8 TVs in my house. I don't know why.
Right.
I've been doing my best to stay busy as much as possible so that I don't sit down and just get sucked into that, and still knowing that I can't get them out of the house. I just, I just can't because it doesn't matter what is going on right now compared to before because I can't focus on it.
Entertainment is addicting.
Yeah.
TV, phone.
That's dopamine.
Everything we have here right now. That's the thing. We could literally sit here and have the same conversation, but we have our laptops, we have this and that because we rely on them. Not because we've got to have it. I don't imagine any of them sitting here.
We're trying to bring as much facts to the table as possible.
But we have all of this possibility and capability that because of this, the fictitious things, we don't even know if they're fictitious anymore. Well, we watch these alien shows, the alien movies, all of this other stuff that really seems to point to certain things. What that movie that came out not too long ago, where the ship came to shore, I forget the name of it. Something about the end or something like that.
Yep. With that one guy and that one girl who had,
and
had a baby together.
Yes, exactly.
He had hair.
So did she. Her hair was long.
But the baby was bald.
It didn't have any teeth either.
Yeah. Oh, darn, it's a baby.
I was born without teeth as well, so
full face.
Yeah.
Well, to the point of all this, and to your point, what you were saying about being so sedated and stuff like that.
You all right, John?
I'm good. I don't think I was born with teeth either.
No, kid. Stark naked too, right?
I thought there was a cloth involved. I don't know why.
So John D. Rockefeller, he created the General Education Board.
Rockefeller or Rockefeller?
It don't matter. At the ultimate cost of $129 million. You're talking about the early 1900s.
He created what?
The what?
Listen, come on, guys.
Basically, he created
he created the General Education Board.
Yes.
Oh, you want me to remember it after I just said it? That's
you mean the guy
too
that said? Is this the guy that said, "Well, we need 10 years would create good factory workers, so let's go 12," and that's why people go to school for 12 years?
Yeah, so don't quote me. He wasn't the one that created the modern school system, but don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was him who said, when asked about why he did what he did with the school system, he said, I was tasked with making good workers for our plants and factories. I was not tasked in making rich people or making people, because I think it was when he was asked why we don't teach money in school, and that's what he said. He's like, I was tasked with making good workers to fill our factories and our jobs.
Because what did we do before?
And that's what we do. Well, but the thing about it is that we don't teach money, we don't teach life, and you can go get an MBA in business and get out and know absolutely nothing about business.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely nothing. And I mean, it's just different. I mean, with the businesses that I've had where you it's different when you feel the weight of someone's life on you. Like if you fire this person, if you don't do a good job managing your business, all of a sudden this person who works full time with you doesn't have a job. They could lose things. Maybe they can't find another job. That's all on you. You have to sleep with that every single night. And they never even touch on stuff like that. And
well, that's why my kids are homeschooled.
Well, but it should be very, very, very. It shouldn't be like, though, homeschooling shouldn't be the solution. Though.
Oh no,
that's the problem. Is my kids are homeschooled not necessarily because of the what.
So
my kids.
We'll take a break for a second. I got to tell you something. So
I can see the sad story. Like, man, I wasn't born with teeth.
This happened. It's a real story. It's a real story. I'm not kidding. My wife's friend. Okay, her name's KK. That's what they call her. She'll probably watch this. She's a little dense at times. I think it's because of the blonde hair. Anyways, and she's okay with this. I'm not offending anybody. Well, not her at least. But I have dentures. I got in a rag, blah, 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 and I've told her about this. But anyhow, so she was sitting there talking about it. She's like, well, how'd you lose your teeth? I was like, I was born without teeth. And she just looked at me. She's like, no, are you serious? It's like, yeah. It's like, I said, it's a super rare, it's like an infant thing, a newborn thing. And it just, I just didn't have teeth when I was born. And it, I didn't have hair. I didn't have teeth. It was like a year and a half that I want to say that she still was kind of on edge. And then finally, one day somebody said something to her and they're like, you were born without teeth too. You know that, right? But it was a serious thing. And for a long time, I got the sympathy of them, at least for a little bit.
You have our sympathy. When you got in that wreck, you weren't driving, but you were running your mouth when you got ran over. That's what happened, right?
What? I didn't get run over.
You said you were in a wreck.
I did get in a wreck.
Yeah.
I was
you weren't driving, but you were running your mouth.
Why is that funny?
It's just funny to me. It's funny to me.
You were stopped, but you were running your mouth at the same time?
He just talks a lot. I don't know.
No, I talk a lot. Go back and watch this video.
We're going to...
This guy talks a lot. This is his podcast, that's why, because he likes to talk.
Look, we're going to Blackrock, all right?
Back to Blackrock again?
I had a comment on Hawaii.
Okay, yes, go.
Okay.
Go with the Hawaii.
A quick comment.
Okay.
All right, ready? Here we go. Cut back in.
Oh, we've been in the whole time. All that staying.
He's probably not going to edit that out.
So... the $700 that those families got for whatever their house expenses, whatever.
Yeah.
You add all that together, do the facts. Here's a fact: is all that money combined is significantly less than what we've sent to Ukraine.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah. Well, the same week they sent several $1 billion to Ukraine. It was $4 billion, I think.
Yep.
And I say $4 billion, but I think that's what it was.
It was billions.
It was billions of dollars the same week that they sent to Ukraine.
Yeah, that whole scenario. I do remember that part.
Yeah.
Because people were like, they're sending these guys $700 checks, and they're sending Ukraine billions of dollars.
But it was significant. So if the money that we had sent to Ukraine in that specific package, if it would have been flipped, it was like a lot of money per person. Like, it was significant. It was like $20-something thousand per household that they could have given these people. The money that was in the Ukraine bill versus, it was a lot. And I remember them going out. But that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like none of our politicians, none of them, they're not writing bills. People are writing bills. They're sponsoring bills.
Right.
That's it. That's what's happening. And, that's something Vivek talked about and why I honestly, I would have voted for Vivek over Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
Because Vivek was, and I remember like seeing him and watching stuff and I'm like, okay, whatever. He's too high strung, he's too Trumpy. He's just doing this to try and get close to Trump or whatever. And the more and more and more he talked, I mean, it's just like, and he would have gotten all of Trump's votes if Trump would have went to jail or died or something like that. No joke about that. That's for sure. But there were some big differences between him and Donald Trump. Donald Trump got into office and he took our deficit spending. He took from it was like Obama was like 1 point something trillion dollars. He only brought it down to like 800 or 900 billion. It's not like he was like cutting spending. He was still spending. He was still spending a lot. And he didn't cut any of our government. He didn't cut the IRS. He didn't cut the FBI.
Yeah, no, that was one thing that I was wondering about.
He increased the military like an amazing amount, which Obama had dwindled it down to pretty much nothing. So I mean, I get part of that, but he increased that massive. And I love our military, but it is another facet of government. You're just giving more money to government where they waste it. A lot of cases they just waste stuff. But Vivek was like, first day, I'm freaking like, we're gonna take the last four of your social if you work for the government, and like if the beginning number of your last four begins in an even number, you're fired. And if that doesn't happen, then we're gonna randomly choose another number. That way it's no discriminatory, but we're cutting the government by, what did he say? It was at least half, but up to like 75%. All government. We're gonna do away with FBI, DOJ, all that good stuff. You take the FBI, you break them apart, and you take them and only fund the divisions that are important. Because the problem is most of what the FBI does can be done by everyone who's already doing it. It's not like that everything they do is explicit. First of all, we need to get rid of the NSA completely. We don't need an NSA. There's no reason. That is nothing but a spying organization to collect data on the citizens. Yeah. Edward Snowden came out and proved that, and then we know it anyways. And that was created right after 9/11 and stuff, and that's what they used. And the thing about the NSA is that they were funded for a short period of time, and then we were supposed to defund them. But Congress keeps punting that ball down the road, and like, all right, we'll fund them for another 3 years. We'll fund them for another 4 years. They're not an actual set in stone government organization. They're just a temporarily funded thing that has grown to this monster that Barack Obama apparently used to spy on Trump, which is not. It's proven now. It's true. It's not. It happens. So they need to be completely. And I wish we heard more rhetoric like that from Donald Trump. I don't think he will, because he's already said when asked about revenge, he's like, "I'm not after revenge. I want to do what's right for the country. We're going to be very successful." That's great, but still, like, the FBI is still there. They're still going to do things. There's still people deeply entrenched in these government organizations, and we don't need them necessarily to do. Like the part of the FBI that does the child sex trafficking and different stuff like that. Right. They're your own division. It's not like we're just not going to investigate stuff like that. But they don't have to be a part of the FBI. Boom, you're your own thing. That's all you do. Go do it, and do a really good job at it. Don't be this massive organization. I wish Trump would say more like that, which is why I'm hoping to God that Vivek is a running mate. I think Trump needs a strong mouthpiece. I don't think he needs a Tim Scott. That's basically like a black Mike Pence. Yeah. Somebody who's going to be quiet and who's just going to say, Trump is awesome, he's doing a good job, and we're going to do great stuff. And no. You need somebody who's going to be like, going to take it to the media, take it to other foreign leaders. It's going to be able to talk on behalf of Donald Trump, period. Not just puppet what he has to say.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree.
So I'm hoping that Vivek, if he doesn't get vice president, I know he'll get some kind of cabinet position. I hope it's something really close to the president, and I hope he can start cutting the budget. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're bankrupt. We're $35 trillion in debt. We're absolutely bankrupt. We're giving out stimulus and stuff, and he's forgiving student loans and all this stuff of money we don't even have. Right. I mean, it's absolutely fake. I mean, it's a fake money.
Well, talking about cuts, one thing that we could possibly cut would be what do y'all think about cutting NASA?
Yeah.
Y'all know much about NASA?
Privatize it and just let SpaceX do it. But see, that's the problem is Elon Musk couldn't make a rocket without a forced partnership with NASA. You know that?
Well,
You can't go to space in America without partnering with NASA because the government has to be involved. Now, I didn't know the United States government owned rights to space, of which we've never been to, and we'll get to that. We've never been to space, but not for the reasons that you're probably thinking.
So
There's been some new developments that came out in the last couple of years in science and what is actually space and stuff like that.
Exactly.
I think I know close to what you're going to say, but on the NASA thing, go ahead.
Well, I was just curious what y'all thoughts, because NASA has headed up for years as far as the moon landing, the globe Earth, flat Earth theories, which I've got some info on and want to see what you guys thought about it. But I mean, flat Earth, globe Earth, there's actually some stuff that branches off those. Have y'all done any research on that?
This is a good point for us to jump. This is a good segue into flat Earth, anyways.
Yeah.
So, I've ever since I never thought twice about flat Earth since until I met you.
Yeah.
And then you started mentioning it, and I'm like, there's an actual person who thinks like he seems like he actually has some kind of a functioning thinking brain, and he actually seems to be bought into the thought of a flat Earth. I might want to look into it. And so I did. And it was scary how much evidence there is, because you shouldn't be any.
There's some scary evidence as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, have you two looked at any of this before? Or is this like
Just the surface.
like it was for me for Hitler? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I'll touch on a few things. But
go ahead.
the two main... There's a heliocentric, which is what we are taught in schools, taught on the news as the globe. North Pole, South Pole, this magnetism thing, which that in itself could be a whole nother thing. But there's a few arguments, and I'm on this group on Facebook where there's this group of people who argue that the world is a globe, and then there's a group of people that argue that it's flat, and they go at each other constantly, and it's a waste of time, because it's like, what does this really matter? In which I have an answer for that, but it's like, which one, who wins? They're both arguing facts. So I decided to take some of these facts and kind of put them down and kind of then see what you guys think, because you can't really be, you can lean a direction, but you can't be directly in the middle.
Right.
What I'm about to tell you is either going to make you think it's more of a flat or it's more of a globe. And I'm not here to say that you're right or wrong. And I'm not going to say which one I am till the end. But I'll start with the globe, okay? We're
long
taught
hair, red hat, America on it. We feel where
one
you're
nation
going.
under God.
We feel where you're going.
So, globe Earth points, okay? So the first things I thought about when I was hearing these things about flat Earth was, well, what about the moon phase? Every 28 days, right? There's a different moon. It goes a little more. And we were taught, where does the moon get its light? From the shadow of the sun. Mm-hmm. Well, is that true? We don't know. But what we're taught and indoctrinated is that it's from the sun. Look at the sunset. All right, so one of the things that flat Earth people...
I was told not to look at the sun.
There you go.
Yeah, I was told that.
And I heard recently that it was
sun.
actually good to look at the sun.
Actually, I heard that too. You get a nutrient from the sunlight.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Jesus. And you're supposed to go barefoot too,
Salt
because your
used to be
body,
bad, good.
yeah, because your body, yeah.
So you release the energy
Anyways,
that's
carry
in it.
on. But
Sorry.
everything you're saying so far checks out. Apparently,
Yeah.
What we're saying.
So when the sun sets, all right, flat earthers believe that it's just, I'm going to go over the actual theory of what they believe in a minute. But they actually believe that the sun is still spinning. It never actually goes down like around a globe, like it disappears. But see, a good globe point, and this is probably my best globe point, is that the sun doesn't get smaller. All right, so look at our vision and our perspective of what our eyes do. The further away something gets, the smaller it gets by just natural law. But if you put your fingers in your face, they're large, but you put them away, they're small. Mm-hmm. The sun doesn't really change shape as it goes down. I could be wrong on that, but just from my common sense, if it does get small, it's barely getting smaller. But it's not like it's going from this cookie down to a chocolate chip. right?
Yeah.
So another one would be, they talk about the Earth tilting with the sun going around having the 4 seasons. That way, if you're on the wrong side of the tilt, it's winter. If you're on the tilt that's closer to the sun, it's summertime. And so you kind of got these things that in my eyes, you don't have a lot more than that. Can you think of anything else, like, prove to me that the Earth is a globe? Like, I can't really think of a whole lot other than those common things. Do you have anything, Jared?
Well, I've been trying to look into, like, the Coriolis effect and different things like that they don't make a whole lot of sense on a flat Earth. But again, these are things that were come up with and taught and indoctrinated. So the Coriolis effect is basically you have the northern and southern hemisphere, and you've got the equator through the middle. If you're north of the equator, the Coriolis effect says anything hovering above Earth will spin. Clouds, vapor, water vapor, whatever. That's why hurricanes spin. So a hurricane in the north will spin counterclockwise, and a hurricane in the south will spin clockwise, and stuff like that. So I've heard some people say that you can't account for that on a flat Earth. I've heard people say, well, you could. There was some experiments done of a guy who put. He got on a lake or a boat or something. He put up like a flag that was 3 meters up, and he went 8 miles down the road, and he could still see it, or 8 miles on the thing. He could still see it with a thing. And according to the natural drop of the Earth, he couldn't. But how they debunk that is they say, well, that's not how. That's because that's just how the light and coming through our atmosphere and the moisture and the water and the air and everything, and that's just how it bends. So your telescope is able to bend as well to that, and that's why it didn't disappear like they would say that it would. And so there's so freaking many different things. Both, like there's stuff that can disprove the Earth being flat, which is mostly grounded on these scientific studies that are unanimously agreed upon, typically funded by governments and things like that. And then there are things in the flat Earth community that are also like very hard to explain. It's very difficult. And I mean, even from like the biggest thing that I found is there's so much biblically in the Bible that seems to
line up. Go ahead.
It seems to want to. It doesn't say it specifically, but it seems to want to talk about the firmament and things. Right. We're surrounded by water, and that's kind of how the flood happened with Noah and stuff like that. And I don't know.
Well, you said something about the hurricanes.
We're living in a.
That's exactly. I was
we're
waiting
living
on
in a
that too.
terrarium, and somebody just poked holes in it so that we can breathe, and that's the stars we see at night.
If you get a canoe paddle and you push it through when you go canoeing your next time, it spins opposite directions.
Yeah.
So I really think based on, and this is just, I don't have any proof of this. This just makes sense.
Yeah. That
the weather patterns do change. And where they kit and construct and go against each other causes the direction of what a storm's going to go. But it does seem that when we get a hurricane here in the Gulf Coast area, that it's spinning counterclockwise. Mm-hmm. We're always getting the whip most of the time.
Yeah. What happens
Does it
if
ever
it
happen
goes
the other
over
way?
the equator?
No.
Like, that's the thing, though. Like,
if it hits
to
the
prove
equator,
that, you've had hurricanes that have gone from the southern
switch,
hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. They don't switch.
So
but
you got this equator line right here through the middle. And anything north of that equator would be the northern hemisphere, where the North Pole and everything, and then you got the South Pole. Anything up here, all this is going to spin counterclockwise, and anything down here is going to spin clockwise.
So here's the question.
That is what the Coriolis effect is.
Yeah. But here's the question. Well, they say that's because of the magnetic pool and stuff, right? It's something to do with magnetic pool.
Yeah, it's something to do with our atmosphere.
So the South Pole isn't magnetic, but it being across the hemisphere, how would that change it? Because that would mean that there would be an opposite force from what it has. So for me, if we look at Rupes, Niagara, whatever you want to call it, say they call it all kind of thing. Was it Polis Magna or whatever it is? If you look at that where it's flat, then that could kind of explain direction. If our direction, because we're still thinking, no matter what, you're thinking of a globe. No matter what, even if you're thinking about the flat Earth theory and how does this make sense in flat Earth, how do we even know the continents are set up the way that it shows on that? So if it is flat Earth, and who says that there is ice everywhere in Antarctica? You have no idea because you can't go there. You can see the hole, and you can see what Google Earth shows us. We can also see the Mars rover in New Mexico or Arizona or wherever it is. So, that's my little.
One thing I was going to say about the hurricanes, like one of the things that you can prove that it really does have something to do with the pole itself, is because you can flush the toilet in Australia and it spins the opposite direction than it does here.
Really?
And that has nothing to do with the wind. It literally has everything to do with the force itself. So it does spin the opposite direction.
I heard that certain things hang on the left side more there too.
Oh, see over.
I don't know.
I heard it was the right,
never
and
been.
then some places it's left, and some places it's right.
So, hey, I looked up. So I've got a couple verses down what Jared was saying as far as what does the Bible say about either one of these theories. You know what? He's right. It doesn't really say much about it.
The 66 books.
As far as
yes, the 66
out of that.
books.
Now, do you know what the full amount of books is called? There's a name for it. I just saw. I think you're right. You nailed it. So I don't know if there is, and you may know this more than
there
I do,
is in the Book of Enoch.
This.
So I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
There's if you need to read the Book of Enoch.
Okay. Well, I do have this verse down for Genesis 1 verses 14 through 19. Then God said, "Let lights in the firmament of the sky for separating the day from the night. They will be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." So, if I want to insert this, if we have a globe, right, versus a flat Earth, all right, and so if the Earth is flat and it is rotating, or maybe it's not, maybe the sun is going around it like a clock. Now, would it line up poetically to kind of match what that says? If it's for time, so here's what a flat Earth is. If there's anyone listening that doesn't know what it is, or if y'all don't know what it is, the theory is take a pancake. All right, take this map behind you, which is actually kind of like a flat Earth, but not. So you'd have to attach all these corners together, but you take a globe and flatten it out to where you can see a North Pole, and that's the very center of the pancake. The outer edges where it's white happens to be the ice barrier / Antarctica. So that would mean Antarctica would be the entire edge, or the edge of the face of the clock, right? So the sun, that doesn't rotate, right? And I'm going to tell you why I believe that based on what NASA and our government and the world says about our spinning Earth, why I don't believe that particular fact. But it would add up that the sun, on flat Earth theory, the sun goes around this stationary flat Earth. And as it gets closer to the center, and then it winds its way back out to the edge, and that creates your seasons. So that solves your seasons. Like, what about the seasons?
And I've also heard that in flat Earth theory, the sun is much, much closer to the Earth and much smaller. It's a local light.
Yes.
Whereas like shining a flashlight, where
not millions of miles away.
Right.
Yeah, not
we're talking like thousands instead of
So
millions,
what do you feel about the firmament? Like, do you feel that is like fluid filled? That's
okay. So here's some science.
I want to read this one thing
because
I want to move on, and not with what we're saying, but I want to look something else up. I don't want to. I'm going to forget it. So, do I need a permit to visit Antarctica? This is from the PoseidonExpeditions.com. It says, you won't need a visa, but you do need to get permission to set foot on the White Continent. But don't worry, your trusted Polar Expedition Cruise operator will arrange for all necessary permits. So there's not free and clear exploration.
Well, no, there's a treaty that's recognized by all the continents.
So it's not as simple. And look, listen, I mean, and I'll let you get back to it. But there are, because I just wanted to point that out, that Antarctica is not, it's not owned by one thing. It's owned by basically this big
Multiple.
treaty that was signed around the same time that we shot a nuclear bomb into the freaking atmosphere to blow it up.
That's never been in jeopardy. This treaty has never been in jeopardy.
Around the same time that NASA was set up as an organization, around the same time that we were planning on going to the moon and everything else that ended up happening later. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that happened within a 10-year period, all at the same exact time, that included the Antarctic Treaty. And it's very spooky.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All meanwhile, the Nazis are down there, supposedly.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, the Indiana Jones movies weren't that far off. Like, he was fascinated with these, Egypt and the Mayans and stuff like that. Like, Hitler was fascinated with all these crazy stories of
Well, if you go look at like who found most of these things, it was actually most of the time, like, I'm not joking, 3/4 of it is like Germans.
Yeah.
Their archaeologists were absolutely sent to every possible side of the world to look for specific things that they thought would actually help solidify that the Aryan race was actually exactly who they said they were. And that those Aryan races were actually connected all the way back to, like, possibly even the Atlantean people, and that's what they were trying to connect. The Aryans were what they were going for is the connection between them and the ultimate race. They're not just talking about some ultimate white people here. They're talking about the ultimate race that was talked about in, like, the Upanishads and the other books from India. I can't even think of the name of.
So you think like the Anunnaki?
No,
Or is
I
it
don't
like...
think it's Anunnaki at all. I think it was more along the lines of the. Anunnaki would be maybe like if they were trying to say that we were from the race from outside of our solar system, perhaps. But I'm talking about really they were trying to connect to the actual race that they believed that was like hundreds of thousands of years old, that had possibly been here, completely wiped out, nothing left of them. But they had found traces of the stories in some of these Upanishads and things like that, and so they were trying to track down where were these people from, what was that real story, what did they have that flew. And so they were trying to find all these different stories, and that's what they were doing. They were looking everywhere. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But it ties right back around to how some of this actually started, even with like Flat Earth story. And especially when you're talking about going to the moon in 1965, that was only 20 years after we took all that technology.
And then what's happened since then?
Yeah, well, they stopped going.
Yeah. Well, and you can research, too. This whole model of globe did not start until, like, I believe the last 75 years or so. You can fact check that.
It was in the 30s, I think, that something like they started changing maps and stuff like that. And I know, you could just see that there's like a pivotal point.
And you could say, oh, well, we have advanced modern technology that figured it out, so we corrected it. But yet we can't figure out how the pyramids were made.
Yeah.
Right? So here's a fact, okay, according to NASA, government, just science in general. Okay, so the ozone is comprised of O3. Okay, the freezing point of O3 into a solid is negative 420 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so do you know what we call outer space, how cold that is?
I don't.
It's negative 450. So if there's that layer of ozone layer, could we assume, based on that knowledge, that oxygen
would be frozen
is
solid.
frozen solid? And if it can't, whether if it can penetrate or not, I don't know. They haven't been able to. I know they've tried to penetrate that. But when it's frozen, when oxygen is frozen in that massive amount, guess what color it is? It's light blue. Go figure.
So
is that anything? So go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
I was just wondering if that was anything like the what ice was
Blue
that?
ice?
Yeah, the blue ice from
I don't have anything on
Antarctica. You don't have anything on that. What's with your smile? Like you got something, you just don't have it right there.
I didn't prepare for that part. I couldn't do it all today.
Yeah.
But
no, we're just setting up segments for other days. That's what we're doing.
So if you have a globe Earth, you could say, well, the firmament then could be all the way around it.
Sure.
But if you notice, the closer you get to if the firmament, like altitude-wise, the colder it gets. So if this firmament is like a dome over us, was what flat Earth people believe, then on the edges where it finally hits flat Earth would make sense to be a ice wall, also known as Antarctica.
Right.
So I think it's funny that NASA was created in 1958, and the Antarctic Treaty was signed in '59, and we shot a nuke into the atmosphere in 61, 62, or 61.
Man,
Yeah, so 61 and 62. I guess we shot two. Either way, we shot one. So
we're
this
shooting a lot.
all
What's going
happened.
on?
It all happened the same exact time. Now I've got something interesting.
That's a super busy period right there.
That's a lot going on. Why are we
That is
shooting? Why are we
so
shooting
busy.
bombs in the atmosphere? There cannot be anything
mean,
good
and-
possibly that would come from that. You can't be thinking.
It just makes me think too. There was so much deception going on. We were in such a race with the Russians right after that about all the technology going on. It just really sets it up for a bunch of CIA scams. I think the CIA was called like OSS back then too. So they were all really good at setting up like false stories. So,
Well, I mean, the moon landing is
very
pretty
questionable.
hard to believe.
Yeah.
The time frame and what we had going on, and like the craziest part is if you look at the video that they took of the lunar thing taking off from the moon headed back. So they set up a camera on the moon. That sucker pans up, real time, pans with the spaceship leaving. Now, they said that camera was controlled by mission control on Earth, 250,000 miles away. We didn't even have cell phones,
Nope. Or FaceTime.
and there would have been there would have been such a delay.
Obviously, John.
There would have been such a delay with that pan up, but I'm talking. It starts taking off, and it's like. And this is real footage from NASA. It's not conspiracy. And that's what we controlled that from space. And we're like, but how did you have that technology? And they're like, nuh-uh. I mean, like, there's no answer for it. But I forgot, what was I saying before that? I got into that. That bothers me right there. That really, really, really bothers me.
Oh, the shooting.
No, right here. We're here. We got it literally right in front of me. Did y'all know the moon is not in our, that the moon is in our atmosphere?
It is. That flat Earth.
They
believes it.
just found that out. I wish I would have.
And it's the same face every night.
2019 or so. This is legit. This is from government website, and I copied and pasted it, but I did not get what year but it was recent. They found this out. So I'm just going to read it and get y'all's opinion.
That's why it's locked in.
So, a recent discovery based on observations by the ESA and NASA, Solar and Heliospheric Observation, SOHO, shows that the gaseous, there you go, layer that wraps around the Earth reaches up to 630 kilometers away, or 50 times the diameter of the planet. The moon's only 250.
Right.
For perspective.
250 what?
1,000 miles.
Yeah. This is 630, so that would be roughly 300 and something ish, 400 and something miles. And the moon is only 250. That we know of. That could be wrong. And so, and I'll just keep it. So the moon flies through Earth's atmosphere, says Igor Balakin of Russia's Space Research Institute, lead author of the paper presenting the results. We were not aware of it until we dusted off observations made over 2 decades ago by the SOHO spacecraft. Where our atmosphere merges into outer space, there is a cloud of hydrogen atoms called the geocorona. One of the spacecraft's instruments, SWAN, used its sensitive sensors to trace the hydrogen signatures and precisely detect how far the very outskirts of the geocorona are. These observations could not be done only could be done only at a certain times of the year when the Earth and its geocorona came into view for SWAN. For planets with hydrogen in their exospheres, water vapor is often seen closer to their surface. That is the case for Earth, Mars, and Venus. This is especially interesting when looking for planets with potential reservoirs of water beyond our solar system, explains Jean-Luc Berthaud, co-author of former principal investors of SWAN. So basically, we've never been to space. We have never been to space. And if you look at Neil deGrasse Tyson does a thing, and he worked for NASA, and he's total Earth is round. There is no God, all this stuff. So he holds a globe, like a normal globe you'd have, and he's like, so the spaceship, if it were to size, basically he says the spaceship would be hovering a little bit less than a quarter inch off of this Earth. That's how close it is. It's not that far up. And he said the moon would be about 1 inch or so away from the Earth. That's freaking close.
Oh, yeah.
That's real. Now, we're talking 250 miles. That's how massive the Earth is for, retrospect. But
250,000.
Yeah, 200. Yeah, but to say it's only that far, and you can watch the video on YouTube, it's super interesting to me. And now we're saying that our atmosphere goes even further than the moon by 100,000 miles that we know of, And so, and we're still just finding this stuff out. The fact that Elon Musk said openly, and he said on the Joe Rogan podcast specifically that I watched, where he said we have to create a base on the moon in order to shoot to Mars because we're going to use too much fuel shooting from our atmosphere. We have to shoot off the moon.
Right.
Why hasn't he been to the moon? Why hasn't he sent anything to the moon? Why haven't we gone to the moon? Why aren't we talking about going to the moon? Why it makes no sense to me. So it should be such a simple thing that we did. What was in 78 or 70 something? That was what was that? Almost 40 years ago now.
The last time we went to the moon. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you can't go.
Well, see, that's the question. And that's the thing is like he's been sending people to space like every month.
Supposedly.
It seems. To the so I mean like
the outer banks of our
it's not even
under the firmament.
It's not even space. It's our atmosphere. It's just a level of our atmosphere that you can float freely and that satellites can kind of hang out and stuff like that. But what year was it?
69.
69. That we went to the moon. 1969.
Because there's like 13 different Apollos. I don't know what all they did. There was lots of different missions.
Apollo 11 was the first crew mission to land on the moon. 1969. I thought it was in the 70s. And see, that's even scarier because
they
NASA
did a couple
was
more though.
NASA was just freaking created in 68.
58.
58. Oh yeah, 58. Yeah, so it was 10 years later. That's still really crazy.
It was 7 years after they shot the second nuke.
Yeah, why are we shooting the freaking atmosphere? What reason? I've heard to break through a firmament. I've heard to see what it looked like. I've heard all kinds of different things. It makes no sense to me. Either way, I think that if the Earth was truly round, then we should be able to, disprove it incredibly easily, and there shouldn't be this stuff that points. And I think whether the Earth is round or whether the Earth is flat, I think people wouldn't have a problem believing these institutions if they weren't historically lying to us for their own gain.
Sure.
So my question to you is, what does the government, what does world leaders have to gain by keeping their population believing that the Earth is actually round?
It's all lobbying like everything else is what I think. Whether if you have a big group of people that are just going to believe in this nonsense, but they're also puppets, but they're getting paid so that there's a funneling of money that who knows where that's going. But a couple of facts of flat earth stuff that almost disproves a globe is take a look at pilots. Pilots would have to tilt down every minute or I don't know if it's seconds to keep going around in a globe or a circular motion. They don't do that. They just keep going.
Yeah.
All right. So check out these are some facts that I can close up on this. The Earth orbits the sun 66,600 miles per hour. But yet our leaves out there are not moving. We're not moving. We don't feel anything. All right, the curvature of 1 mile squared is 0.666 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were to go out, say 50 miles in the water, because the water is flat, that's how our measuring sticks used to be made. The ones that create the.
So every mile is almost 3/4 of an inch drop. Is that
something like that? Yeah. So if you go out 50 miles, if there was a boat, an average size boat, you would not be able to see it. Well, they went out there and tested it. You could see the boat. Matter of fact, even on a mountain, it's going thousands of miles on these high-tech cameras. Thousands of miles away, they can see something. You should not be able to do that with that given degree of change.
Well, I just think that it's amazing to me that people can't. They can't wrap their mind around us. So we know people don't realize how big the Amazon jungle is. Mm-hmm. If you look it up and you look at it on a map that actually shows you, that is not a good representation. So the United States is basically like this big. This is not a real representation.
Right. Yeah.
And the same goes with the Amazon jungle.
Yeah, Greenland's not that big either.
Rainforest.
So.
Amazon jungle, rainforest, it doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure it's the Amazon.
2,700,000 square miles.
There are the vast majority of that we've never been to. And a lot of the areas we're not allowed to go to. They won't allow, and they want to talk about blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Also, as they're starting to cut down areas and they're finding this black dirt. Have y'all ever heard of that?
Yeah, amapreta.
Yeah. Well, it's impressive that
Say
you
that
knew
again?
that. You knew the word.
Amapreta. It's the black ancient soil
Yeah.
that they
So
found down
this soil is not found in any other part of. It's man-made by all ideas.
I have a
It's-
degree in horticulture,
Yeah.
so that's exactly.
Oh,
what
okay.
I do.
Yeah. So I mean, this stuff. This is why. Basically, this is the reason why the Amazon jungle is so dense, so thick. Trees grow incredibly high, and it's hard to traverse through there because of this dirt that they're finding.
But they say it's man-made.
They're saying it's man-made. They can't find another. It's not found anywhere else. And so this stuff is this magic dirt that just grows stuff crazy high.
Can you buy it at Lowe's?
You can now.
Yeah.
Probably Home Depot.
It's only like
Yeah.
you could get like 25 square feet for like $4.49 or something. That's pretty.
That's pretty dope.
reasonable. That's why I'm pro cutting down the Amazon.
So we can dig this stuff up.
Yeah, because
ship
I
it to
can't.
America.
I can't grow tomatoes, but I feel like that would grow them for me.
Here, anybody can grow
Yeah.
it now.
But you.
I'll put a disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
But you get the point.
Anybody
Also,
can do this.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. The ones who failed, it's not our
Also,
fault.
to that, there was an experiment done in Japan or somewhere crazy over there like that, where they took this big thing and got they planted a cherry tomato bush. They planted it in this big old area. Okay, they took the little pom-pom things where it's like these plastic little things, and there's a light in the middle, and it lights up, and it comes through it almost like fiber optic cable and comes
okay.
through the end.
Yeah.
That is
Okay.
fiber optic.
They use that to catch the sun and only let that light on the plant. That alone, that plant produced, oh my God, it was like 40,000 cherry tomatoes and grew like, I don't know, it was like 40, 50 feet. And it was amazing. Like this big building they built and like, all because they filtered the light through that. It was natural sunlight filtered through those cables and then fed. And you mean, this is a real story. This isn't fake. So knowing all of this stuff, why don't we do that? One cherry tomato could be an entire crop. Why are we messing up farmland?
Yeah.
And do you know that tilling the farmland, the reason that we have to put all these fertilizers and stuff that are bad for the environment and horrible to make and everything else, they're bad for me and you to eat. The reason we have to put that in our soil is because we till it. The soil wasn't supposed to be tilled up like we do it. We're killing the nutrients and so there's no nutrients left.
No,
So-
it's
so it
not.
wouldn't
It's not as
grow.
much that as the fact that the government tells from a bunch of I grew up in the farm industry, not doing much myself, but I hear a lot of stories. But the government, if they're going to plant, like any farmer's going to plant anything or anything like that, the government says, all right, where you're going to get your seeds, short of having to get them yourself and create your own seeds that you're going to plant and keeping that stored, but you can't do that on a large scale now anyways. You get your seeds from us, can't repopulate with them.
Yeah.
You can't use anything from that, but you also have to rotate your crops because you plant cotton, then it robs nitrogen, or it creates too much nitrogen, or what have you, and you plant it. So then the next year you plant peanuts, and then the peanuts create the nutrients for the soil and all. But when it comes to the crops that you grow from the government seeds, you have to put all those chemicals and stuff on them because the government says, hey, your stuff's going to die, you got to put this on it, and you have to do what we say.
It's
Well,
true.
otherwise-
It's called subsidies.
Yeah,
and because
subsidies,
the
yeah.
government pays you subsidies, you have to use the recipe that they require.
Which
Well,
then
which is-
in turn you have to but
Well,
that's how that happens.
Why, if we can grow plants like that, if we can do things like that, if there's dirt in the Amazon which we're not
Sure.
allowed to do anything with or try to duplicate, or we don't even know what it is. Like,
We can duplicate it. It's
we
just
can?
it just takes a good time,
It's-
a good long period of
Yeah,
time.
It's in Africa,
So
that's
what-
why there's big long bananas there.
yeah. Oh, there you go. That's
every time.
I
Yeah.
feel
That's-
like I really feel like this is an edit point.
That's a Theo Vaughn point.
Okay.
Theo Von Boy.
But anyways, the point that I was trying to make is all of this.
I think we need a break.
all of this stuff that we're, all of the stuff that we're told, all the stuff around us, to sit here and say that you to really just sit here and be fed. Because listen, there are people that just believe that the Twin Towers fell because of a couple planes. Which,
Right, but a light pole rips a plane's wing in half. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just, and I'm not going into that one way or the other. My point is that people will just believe whatever,
Sure.
and until folks wake up and just start questioning things, it's fine to trust but verify. It's fine to say, okay, the government probably telling me the truth, but like it's worth a Google. It's worth listening to someone who thinks that they're wrong, a quick 5-minute, 10-minute video, and you might say, ooh, I mean, our government infected people in South America with syphilis. We infected people in
Africa with AIDS. Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
all this stuff we know happened. So we're not the most trustworthy, corporation of government in the world, along with anybody else at all that we do. So, but I think that this is probably a pretty good place to just stop it, unless y'all have something y'all want to add.
I do. Check this out. So I said that the Earth's orbital speed around the sun is 66,600 miles per hour. The curvature of 1 mile squared is 0.666 square feet.
Yeah.
The Earth's axial tilt is 23.4 degrees, but when you subtract that from a 90-degree angle number, you have 66.6. The diameter of the moon is 2,160 miles, which is 6 times 6 times 60. The temperature of Uranus, negative 216 degrees, which is 6 times 6 times 6.
Yeah.
Okay? All right? Okay, this is crazy, okay? In the NASA sign, okay, there's two things. There's a red thing like this, which is the same shape of a snake's tongue.
Yeah.
And then it actually does have a snake going around the edge, which is actually a sign of some type of like demonic something. So, all right, check this out though. If you were to take the words spelled out for what NASA means, which I couldn't say, but if you spell out each word in a reverse ordinal order, which means each letter stands for a number, and it's like, for somebody's first name, Adam, A would be 1. But when you put it in numerical reverse order and you add it all up together, it gets 666. And that's not enough. NASA in Hebrew means deception.
That's right.
And another one, okay? Take COVID, spell it backwards, look it up in Hebrew, and it means demon possession.
Jeez.
Night.
And on that,
And if you can't look at that right there and
Yeah.
have some kind of skepticism at least, even if you're like, oh, Mark of the Beast, whatever, it's overdone, okay, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you're an atheist, it doesn't matter. At the very least, somebody and somebody's family, somebody has been trolling us for a long. That's like either the most epic troll of Christianity and the devil and everything else, or there might be something to it. So,
well, I mean, we can get into that in another one. I will imagine that
we need to get a priest in here.
the government
Give us an exorcist.
we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
really
yeah,
make
yeah.
a lot of connections
Yeah.
between that and a lot of other things that have happened. We can touch every single subject that we've talked about today.
We need a round table.
And
I want
Little swords.
I want a black lesbian priest.
Black lesbian priest. I bet we
Okay.
could find one of those in Andalusia.
From conception, from birth, from 12 years old, or what? Like, when did they turn to lesbian? When
It's
did
not
they
a choice.
become?
First of all, it's not a choice.
Not a choice.
No, it's only a choice if
that's
you're
right.
bi. It's not a choice if you're a lesbian. You're just born that way.
With an innie at birth or with an outie at birth?
Well, I'm a lesbian.
Me too.
That's not a
That's
joke.
a
That's not a
coincidence.
joke. You were born
not a
without
joke.
teeth, and I'm a lesbian.
That is crazy.
Thank you, Joe Biden. That's not a joke.
It's not,
It's
a,
not a
joke.
joke.
It's not a joke.
My name's
Did
not
y'all
Brandon,
see
that's
him?
no joke.
Did y'all see him threaten the Supreme Court in his State of the Union?
I didn't watch it. I honest to God, I tried to wait, and it took him. I swear to God, it took too long for him to walk out from
Oh my
the backstage
God!
to
Didn't it?
get to stage. I
haven't
think I
even
quit
watched
before
it.
I even got there.
No,
It was
he
like,
literally
I don't
he
have
looked
time
at
for
the
this.
Supreme Court, raised his voice, and I'm pretty sure he pointed over there, and he's like, "And you're gonna wish you never did repeal Roe v. versus Wade. The women in this nation, and we're gonna fight back against that, and you're gonna rue the day." Basically, some wording along that, and he's looking at them, and like the mic is right here, and he's like coming over the mic,
Oh
and like.
man, yeah.
He literally threatened them, like with what I don't know, but with some kind of action. Like they're supposed to be an autonomous, separate thing.
Yeah.
And 3 out of the 9 voted against that. They didn't want to repeal the Roe v. versus Wade thing, and they didn't. They were stoic. Even they were like, "Holy cow! I know he's not," But, anyways,
Yeah, I didn't watch it. Like I said, I tried, but it took him too long to get out there, and I knew he was going to I just needed to speed it up. I just couldn't wait.
It
I
was
couldn't
bad.
wait. I could go back now and
the
put
whole
on
thing was bad. It was
1.5 maybe.
nothing but lies. The entire thing.
Well,
was
that's
lies.
what I just
It's like I
couldn't-
told Devin.
no
He
point
never
waiting.
said what the State of the Union was.
No.
You're supposed to. It's almost like praying for the food, but you pray for everything. You're like, thank you for this family and for safe travels and everything.
And you never said thank
in
you for the
Jesus'
food?
name, amen. And somebody's like, for the food too.
Yeah.
Like he never actually said, come out there and be like, listen, I know we've got our differences, and I don't like half of you, and half of you don't like me, but like the State of the Union is strong because this is America.
I think he
and
forgot what he was doing.
bull crap, bull crap, bull crap. Just go
Whatever
out there
he
and
says
say it. You're
goes.
supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like this entire thing we talked about. We tell everyone this, then they're gonna believe it,
Yeah. Hopefully,
and they do.
hopefully we can get some subscribers and get monetized and start making a little bit of money, and we can get some different cameras and get this
Look.
at the laundromat instead of here or somewhere.
Oh, the laundromat.
We got this guy. We're gonna go find some of that black dirt.
And every second that I wasted talking
Actually,
about it
we're
is a
gonna
second
make
On Amazon.
As a matter of fact,
I mean, we can deliver it.
cheat. I don't want to tell them that I got it with no proof. I would rather show them the receipts. I find it funny how they say you gotta talk less and do more when I